With the rise of anarcho-capitalist Stefan Molyneux and his rigorous indoctrination, I mean liberation method of defooing, in which the subject cuts ties with their family and throws themselves headfirst into a fun communion with the wholly free market, there's also been a popularization of egoism, an ideology which posits the only duty the individual has is to themselves. However, since fedoras are so trendy these days, most of these so-called egoists are actually followers of Ayn Rand who posited objective self-interest. The problem with this is LMAO, objectivism is a spook. Haven't you even read Stirner? You see, the logical conclusion of egoism has already been posited by the original OG egoist Max Stirner, German for big forehead, in his book The Ego and Its Own, in which he posited that all forms of morality, states, and ideals, including objectivity, are spooks, meaning they are all appealing to abstract concepts, which are notions devoid of any real content and distract from the actual desires of ego, the exercise of its own will. I thought this meme had died back in the 1800s, but thanks to the wonders of shitposting, it's back from the dead. Now I know you're all dying to know how you can really become the edgiest guy on the block, so I've invented a step-by-step guide guaranteed to make you a living meme in no time. Are you ready to become euphoric? Okay, my unique ones, let's go. Step 1. You gotta recognize that capitalism is just as spooky as the state, and that in fact all hierarchy is restrictive of both parties' freedoms. For the worker, the value of their labor is exploited. For the business owner, under capitalism, they have to become primarily concerned with the profit and material conditions. Their pursuit of material ego becomes entirely one-sided, and they have to ignore all other aspects of their ego. A large part of their ego is thus never expressed and shrivels faster than a penis after 20 lines of cocaine. Due to the glories of consumerism, now literally everyone is unhappy, all because they have to focus on this spooky money stuff. Now I know what you're thinking. Is human nature to be into profit and capital? But that's where step 2 comes in. Step 2. Recognize that human nature is a spook, and only has power over if you let it. I mean, Fedora Rich Nietzsche made a pretty good argument that they will never overcome human nature, but we don't talk about him because he was spooked. I mean, it's a pretty after-the-fact claim to say that capitalism is in human nature anyway, and it's pretty undialectical too, but no worries, I get Hegel and Marx are pretty ugly. Just remember that humanity is a spook, and when you talk about humanity, you're never actually referencing the actually existing individuals, but just some abstract concept, haha, keeping it 100 fam. Now, if you're still not convinced that you think humans really need property, I refer you to step 3. Recognize that everyone and everything is already a property. You've just yet to attain power over it. Will to power is a subset of the will to ego. There's no objective reason why you can't just shoot some people and take over some land, right? Think of it this way. If a landowner doesn't actually use the land he's paid for and hires a gardener to live on it and till it, who is really owning the land? That's what I thought. That's why I mark my territory with urine everywhere I go. So up to this point, you've learned why capitalism, why these randy ideas are actually just fucking spooks. But that's obviously not to say you're despooked. It takes a lot of training to despook yourself properly. So here's step 4. You need to meditate for weeks on end on the spooky and fundamentally absurd nature of our existence. There's a method perfected by an elite group of basement-dwelling monks that entails exposing yourself to the many dank sterner maymays out there, and mirroring this by creating your own and using them to shitpost on image boards in a radically free act known as sterner posting. It's advised to listen to Vaporwave whilst doing this, so as to really get those creative nothings flowing. Step 5. Now your brain has been roasted to a crispy golden brown, and it's time to go out into the real world and totally impress all the normies and bust all the spooks. That means every so often in your speech, you gotta make some, obscure reference to Goethe or Hegel. If you catch a poor soul perpetuating some spooky shit, you gotta make sure to obnoxiously shout out, "spooks," mid-sentence. If someone accuses you of being selfish and annoying and stuff, just retort, "Hey, that's real fucking spooky, mate," and cheekily raise an eyebrow. Cigars are optional. Continue this trend until you either have no friends or you've successfully formed a union of egoists. Mutually beneficial anarchistic horizontal structure, which sounds eerily like anarcho-syndicalism, making you wonder why he didn't just do that in the first place. So if you've gone through all these steps and they work for you, congratulations, you're officially a fucking sociopath, get the fuck away from me.